All right, this is going to take me down to multiple pages of... Oh, no, it's going to take me down multiple pages of Google. Yeah, all right. So, welcome back to the Janchi Show.
Oh, wow.
I don't want to jump in like that.
That's no. We can't
I don't want to jump in like that. I was like,
I thought you were going to play the music.
I don't have intro music.
You're listening to the Janchi Show, hosted by 3 Korean American adoptees diving headfirst into what it means to be adopted, Korean American, and more. And now, here's your hosts, Nathan, Patrick, and KJ.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Janchi Show. You know who it is. It is I, Patrick Armstrong, one of your 3 co-hosts here with my fellow co-hosts for the first time in a long time. Both KJ and Nathan are joining me in the Zencastr studio today. Fellas, how are you doing?
Wow.
That is applause-worthy.
We made it.
We're back together
We're
again.
back together again.
I had to make sure it didn't loop on us.
You've been having a lot of loops going on.
I don't know what the deal is. I'm going to pray about it and get back to you. Personally, I'm good. I had my first weekend of rest.
You got some actual rest.
Yeah. I didn't have to work extra on my normal day job or any of my side day jobs. I was like, you know what? I do have some deadlines, but they're not that pressing. So that was really nice. I feel like 1,000 pounds lighter. So that's not a forever situation, but the end of the tunnel is nigh. So that's exciting. So
the end of the tunnel is nigh. I like that.
Feels good to catch up. I know how that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
How's Sarah doing? I see her over the shoulder there.
Sarah over the shoulder is running that girl boss game. She's hustling like a champion. She's actually about to give a pitch. On the day you hear this, if you listen to it on release day, she'll be pitching her nutrition coaching and habit-based coaching to some local moms here in Dallas.
Nice.
Very cool.
Yeah, real excited for her. I'm actually making her business cards to give out.
Sounds like you kind of want to do the pitch right now.
Yeah, let's do a pre-pitch.
Pitch it to us.
No. Sarah, get on the mic. Pitch your business.
Pitch us.
Janchi listeners.
Tell me how horrible I'm eating. Come on, do it.
Speaking of that, I did just start today, as of this recording, started training for a half marathon.
Ew.
Like a mini marathon.
Why?
13 points. Because one of my friends...
It is
mini marathon.
Not a mini marathon. Let me just tell you.
One of my friends messaged me and he's like, hey, do you still run? And I'm like run playing basketball or run for distance? And he's like, distance. And apparently he's been training for a marathon here in Indianapolis. And he's like, you should run it with me. And he basically just said that in messages about 6 times and finally broke me down. So
wow.
I started today on that.
So
I might need to hit
if
up
you
Sarah
want Patrick
for
to
some
do
nutritional
anything.
How far did you run today then?
I ran 1 mile. I'm on
12.1 to go.
I'm on accelerated training schedule, so I'll be ramped up pretty quickly.
That is approximately 1 mile further than I could possibly run.
It was tough.
So.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie to you, America, and whoever else is listening. It was tough.
Canada and Australia. I think
some South Korea. Some people in South
that's
Korea.
our top 3 countries.
Maybe Denmark.
There's some Spain too. I saw some Spain on there.
No, I'm saying top 3 countries.
Oh, gotcha.
But yeah, no, half marathons are tough. I've run many 5Ks and 10Ks, and I was like, oh, these are no problem.
Ew.
But when I did the half marathon, I was exhausted about 3 miles from the finish line. But
I don't picture you as a runner. That's
right.
That's no critique on anything specific. I just don't see you as being a runner.
Yeah, I was like, what?
Yeah, no, well, I mean, I've played soccer since I was 6, so there was a lot of running involved in soccer.
Lots of running involved in football.
I definitely can, but I've never done it for long distance. Yeah, so this was, I don't know why I got on that trend a while back, but it was fine, and it was fun, and now I can say I've done one, but I would never do a full marathon. So
smart.
I don't know. What should we even talk about? I mean, we have an interview coming up.
Yeah.
I wasn't there for this interview, so we should get that out of the way. And listeners, I am going in blind like you are. Is that? No, I don't like that. Cut that out. I'm going in with just as little knowledge of the person we're speaking to as you are.
He's flying ignorantly, just like the rest of us.
Flying ignorantly. Yes, I like that. That sounds much better.
You're like, you don't deserve to be in the sky, but he's there anyways.
I mean, I know we can talk about one thing that may be coming up here in a couple months.
Oh, yeah, we were going to talk about that. I forgot.
Live from Dallas. We've got KJ, we've got Patrick, we've got Nathan.
I need like a loud cheering effect. I just
Is
realized.
that the first time that we've even mentioned where it's going to be at, and that we're doing a live show for sure?
So
I felt like that was a little fanfare because
That's
KJ was looking
like
for the
this.
fanfare to play behind.
And then Patrick went, I forgot.
Don't you have the clapping? I think the applause.
Yeah, but that's like a polite.
That's not like a cheer.
You gave a nice presentation, not like and the crowd goes wild.
That's very true. It's like, okay, who's next? I'm ready to get out of this conference.
Gentle applause. Yeah, it's like you're at the keynote speaker of like the last main session of a conference. You're like, I get it, but also I just want to go home. Yeah, we're gonna be live. We're gonna be in Dallas, hometown boy. Real excited about that. We don't have really any information. Oh, wait, we have a date. Nathan, when is that?
That would be important. Yes.
That's the most important part.
I was going to say the most important part is the location and the date.
We have one of those things.
Yeah. So we have Dallas and we have October 22nd. So it is going to be that weekend. We are doing what we did last year, which was gathering together with as many people who want to come and just come hang out. We'll probably have food. We'll probably have the live podcast, which we did last year. We'll have, just hang out. We'll eat food. We'll drink. We'll just, it's just going to be a good old time. So I really hope to see a lot of you. It's going to
be a good old time.
I know that sounded very Dukes of Hazzard. I don't know why. But
I didn't think that, but okay.
This is the last weekend of the state fair. So if you wanted to go to the state fair of Texas, you could check that out. But otherwise, yeah. I don't know, just a thing.
Is that all the details that we have currently?
Yeah, that's it.
That is.
So just make your flight plans, and we'll get our crap together. Hopefully, chances are it will be in North Dallas in the like Carrollton area, because that's where the Korean ethnoburb is, as I have recently discovered in this book that I'm reading / listening to called Rise of Pop History of Asian America from the 90s to now. That's the other thing I wanted to talk about.
Very smooth.
Yes.
I just think it's really cool. I listened to it because I heard it on another podcast. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I'm going to pick that up. And then I was listening to them like talk about a thing. It was like the Asian American syllabus. There's just kind of like a list of pop culture things that kind of help bring us to where we are. And I was just like so happy to hear everything listed out. And then I also started crying because I was like, man, this is so much about our culture that I just have no point of reference for, being adopted and all that. And then I was like, if this book is going to make me cry, I should probably own it in physical form, not just digital form. And I'm excited. Like, it's beautifully illustrated, and I'm really excited to keep reading / listening to it, just have it as a reference. So anyways, I just wanted to give a shout out. I mean, I think it's a thing about like, because Asian American is an identity that is so new that like we do have the initial record of when that was. It's just like, there is a collectible history and one that we can choose to opt into. And I think going specifically the pop history route is really interesting, because that's like the thing that in some ways affects us the most. So yeah, I don't know. That's just, I just want to give a shout out to that book and my journey with it. And yeah.
Well, it's like definable markers, I think, pop culture is for a lot of people. For most people,
say this movie came out. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom came out 1982 or whatever year that was.
You said the Temple of Doom?
No.
Crossover? So is it like written anthology stuff? Like, how is it? I've seen the book advertised. I don't know a ton about it, and you obviously gave a very good summation of it, I think, just now. But I was wondering if you could break it down just a little bit more.
It's like a collection of essays, a collection of conversations, some artwork, and some things. It's just got like a lot of it. It's large. It's like 800 pages, I think. Like it is
that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a proper tome.
That's like,
but it's just
2 pachinkos.
That's like, is it really?
I don't know.
It's probably, I was like, I think pachinko is long. It might only be like 1 pachinko.
That's very true.
No, it's just good. It's really digestible, and it's broken out in sections and stuff. And so, yeah, like I said, I've mostly been listening to it, so I can't actually speak to the written portion of it, but I wanted to have it written. You can pick it up at Barnes & Noble, which I found out, which is really nice. It's in the social sciences section, because I don't have a cool bookstore near me that I can go find one. But yeah.
So you said that part of it, or listening to it, made you cry at a certain point. Is there a specific thing, that story from it, that you could pull that you've listened to so far that's really, really resonated with you? Or has it been more of a collective, just everything upon everything?
It was just the weight, like the care with which this has been put together. I actually just finished a section on like where they name a bunch of like ethnic enclaves, essentially, whether it's like Little Tokyo or Little Saigon or Koreatown or Chinatown, whatever, and like where they are in America and like how large they are. And they're like in the spirit of naming places like the Big Apple or whatever, we're going to go ahead and rename these places. So instead of saying like Little Tokyo, we're going to call it the Big Gyoza, or like instead of Chinatown, we're calling it the Big Bow, like those kinds of things. I think it's really fun and cute like that. But it's just like the weight of these collections. Like this one, really, it was like the Temple of Doom got a shout out, 16 Candles got a shout out, a silent film got a shout out, some music got a shout out, whatever. Yoko Ono got shout outs. Like in this like kind of Asian American syllabus, and like the weight of it, I was like, wow, there is so much that I don't know about our people's history. So just like feeling some of that, but then also like I flipped through it once I bought it, and I was like, oh, there's that song "Don't Sit Next to Me Just Because I'm Asian" by the Bruce Lee Band. And I was like, hey, I made a cover of that song. And so there's like little bits and pieces where like I know I had interacted with broader Asian American culture, but then to see like so much that I just had not even like, to call it the tip of the iceberg would do a disservice to how large everything else was, you know what I mean? And just like, and how little I had really touched. And so that was just like, just mind blowing to me. And it was kind of that weight that I was like, that impressed upon me, like what I've missed out. And it made me excited to learn, but also just like to mourn for what I had not experienced,
That descriptor of like you're uncovering, like you're here and you're uncovering like this thing that you did that connected you with Asian America or culture, but really there is so much more around you that is just out of view, just out of the periphery. It just makes me think of the fog that we talk about as adoptees, and like what we don't see. Well, what we can experience a lot of things and understand them very individually, but then there's so much just right outside of our view that we're missing. And I don't know. I've been trying to move away from that specific language, but
you're trying to move away from fog language.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know. And this is probably a topic for another conversation, another episode, but
spoiler for the future.
But for the future. Yeah, I think that, I don't know. I think when I learned kind of a little bit of the origins of like coming out of the fog, being Nancy Verrier coin termed from The Primal Wound, and she is a white adoptive parent. And while I would not dissuade anyone from reading that book or connecting with the work that she's done, I think in the spirit of reclamation and trying to find my way to language was created by us, or at least, yeah, I don't know. I think, I guess created or coined on our part, because I feel like it just attaches us to that. And maybe not us, but to me, like for me, it feels like I'm attached to this thing that I don't necessarily want influencing or dictating my language, even though it's not necessarily I'm the one that chooses to use what I do and what I choose not to. Yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of, again, I think I would need a little bit longer to talk about it, but yeah.
Yeah.
No, well, you can use what Shanae said. You're jumping out of the airplane.
Jumping out of the airplane. I did like that one. She spoke it much more eloquently than I.
Sure.
So
that was good.
We just remember the broad strokes.
Yeah, the broad strokes. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, is KJ kind of what, along with what Patrick just said too, is the fact that you're exploring those little tidbits of information, and it makes you want to learn all the more things around you and around that subject. Kind of like what we've said, with our adoptions and stuff, where it's like going down the rabbit hole of learning more each time you learn a little bit more, and it just keeps going and going and going. So, so that's, I'm sure, really cool that you have found that book, and sometimes I wish I had more time to read.
He said there's pictures in there.
Oh, there's pictures. Good, give it to me.
Oh yeah, it's
sorry.
It's well illustrated.
That was rude.
Is there a movie coming out soon? Oh, okay.
I mean, does it seem like it could be? It's ripe for adaptation,
no,
or do you think that it's not something? Oh,
it's not. It's not. It's like high quality. It's like somewhere between like an op-ed and just like high quality BuzzFeed listicles.
Oh, interesting.
So it's like, I don't know, like it's just
more
really
informational.
Yeah, it's more like how Asian America reacted to certain things, because I haven't even gotten really to the 90s. So it's more just like, oh, 16 Candles, Long Duck Dong, and like how we all felt about this character, or like Short Round, or those kinds of, those things are like, oh man, I love like the San Francisco Chinatown, which I think that's one that they call like the Big Bow. And so like, how do we like call that? What's come out of that? Like it's very much I'm really just in the beginning of it. But for me, like it's a whole list of like, oh, here's a book that I could read. Here's a musician I could listen to. Here's a movie I could watch. Here's like all these things that I'm like, oh, this is so like, like I could literally make a playlist of like great Asian American artists and music to come out before the 80s, and just things like that, which I think is really cool. So yeah, I don't know, like it's just really exciting.
Well, why don't you go ahead and make that playlist and send me the link?
Yeah, I definitely will.
And then send me the book.
And then send you the book. I mean, if you send it back, I'd send it to you.
No, can't promise that.
That's fair. All right. Well, yeah. So I think it really does to me feel like a love letter to Asian America. And it's like, it's so exciting for me to have this and to be like feel like I'm falling in love with my people as I'm learning my history, and knowing that my people and my history includes the diaspora of Asian America, and specifically highlights like the problem and the like weird juxtaposition of Asian American and Pacific Islander. And they have like a lot of like native voices, like that. It just really wrestles with, where are we as Asian Americans, as Pacific Island Americans, as, all of just broadly Americans from like the Asian continent, in a way that is just really exciting to me. And it just helped me be more comfortable in my own skin, reclaim some of that identity, get over some of that imposter syndrome, whatever, specifically in that space, which I think is a lot of what we talk about with Paul, in just terms of like, he grew up in an Italian family, but has learned to fall in love with his Koreanness, his adoptedness. And so that's what the interview is that we're going to throw to here right now. But yeah, like we said at the top, Patrick isn't here for that. So this is the last time you'll hear Patrick's voice.
I did mention that 17 minutes ago.
Don't forget about it. And here's our interview with Paul DiGilio.
Okay, bye.
Welcome back to the Janchi Show. We are back in the saddle with an interview. It has been a couple of episodes since we've had the privilege of doing that. And with us today is the one and only Paul DiGilio. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
So excited to have you on the show. Like I said, it's been a while since we've had an interview, and I was just like, Nathan, we really need a guest. we got to make that happen. So thanks for jumping in and for filling out the form. Let's kick this off the way we kick off all of our interviews. Would you tell us in as many or as few words as you want your adoption story?
Sure. So 4 years old, was adopted from Mokpo, and I guess I was only in the orphanage for maybe like a month. I like to brag about that. I was selected kind of quick. Like that's something my parents would say to me is like, most parents just have to deal with the kids that they get. We chose you, so that's something, because I grew up in a very non-diverse area in Northwest Jersey. And, that it was kind of wild what our family did. They also adopted me a younger brother and sister when I was 7 from India. So my dad was Italian. My mom was part Swedish. Our family was kind of like coined the League of Nations in our town. And I was I think I was the only Korean, and maybe one of like 3 or 4 Asian kids in our school. And that includes what everybody considers Asian. I think, like an Indian, maybe a Japanese. I think, and she was only like half Japanese. So non-diverse. And I just grew up and I grew up Italian, and that's how I kind of identified most of my life, was Italian. And as a child and even through high school, when people were asking me, like, am I interested in learning about Korea or anything like that? I was like, why would I be? I'm Italian. And that's just kind of like how I identified. It wasn't until way after college that I started just questioning. My parents had always been supportive. Like, if you want to learn, we'll support you. And if you want to find out information. And then it was end of 2019. I wanted to plan a trip to Korea. Stop me if I'm going too far into this, No,
man, this is your story, your time. You do it.
So it was 2019, and my dad actually, through his company, he works for a graphite company, and he was in charge of like the Asian sector. So he had been to Korea, Japan, China multiple times.
When you said the Asian sector, I was like, do you mean like the Asian employees, not like the Asian part of the world? I was like, that feels wrong, like less than good. And
you'll be sitting over here in the Asian sector.
Yeah, be like, over here. Wow, yikes.
So we were planning this trip, and I was also trying to connect with Holt to figure out, what I need to go through to find out information about my birth mother, that's the only thing that they had information on. My birth father, he kind of ghosted my mom. What happened was my mom was married to a man, and they had 4 girls and a boy, and he died.
Your birth mother, right?
My birth mother, yep.
Okay.
She was married to a man, and they had originally had 4 girls and a boy. He died, and she got with another man and then had me. And then he, according to the records, covered up his tracks, which is kind of like the American standard for he ghosted her. So now with like 6 kids, single mother, not looking good for her financially. She wasn't financially well off. So I think that's why I got put up for adoption. And looking back into it, they have to like reach out tactfully because they don't know what her story is right now. She probably got resituated with somebody and didn't mention me because I was pretty illegitimate. And if they uncover too many, like if they interfere with her life too much, then it could impact her. So it's like, we have to be very tactful. We have to be very slow about it. The progress will not be what you think. And meanwhile, my dad and I were planning this trip. And what we were going to do is go to Korea for 2 weeks. I was going to be there for 2 weeks. He was going to be with me for the first week, and we are going to bounce around to the different contacts that he had that were like super pumped to have me come visit. They're all like, I was going to spend a night at this family, this family, this family. And then after a week, he was going to go to Japan. And then I was going to go to Mokpo, which where I was born. And I was going to spend that week by myself, just, for myself to reflect and just take it in. And then obviously 2020 COVID hit. And that shot, and leading up to it, I had started learning Korean using a couple apps. I hadn't made too much progress. I ended up just watching Train to Busan like 20 times and trying to like just memorize. Like I would watch it with the captions off and see if I could just remember what was going on. And then after 2020 COVID hit, that stopped. But however, recently I've been trying to get more into getting back in, like just back in with the Korean culture, learning about it. I volunteered at a Philly event, put me in touch with a couple people, and one of the people that I spoke with talked about the Janchi Show. And that's when I started listening, and that's when I started, did the whole form. And meanwhile, I'm also meeting other Korean adoptees at the time, and I didn't realize there was a term for it, like CADS. And that term doesn't really line up. What is that? Acronym style. It's like Korean adoptees, right? It should be like CA.
Yeah.
But then in Philly, we have the D. we have CAPS, which does kind of Korean American Adoptees of Philadelphia, and I didn't even know that was a thing. And now I've connected, and we had a dinner the other day, and it was like 5 of us, 5 adoptees with 5 different stories, and it was weird. One, it was the first time in my entire life that I've not been a minority in a social gathering, which was kind of wild. And and even onto the next level, not just being Korean, all of us being adopted Koreans. It was interesting.
Right.
It was,
it's definitely a surreal feeling when the first time that happens, and any more than even one person sometimes is kind of mind-boggling, where you're like talking to somebody about your adoption and in general, but then when you get 5 people, 10 people, 200 people in a room, it's like, yeah, each time it's like a different degree of kind of mind-boggling.
Well, especially like when you're
reflection.
In a situation where you are saying things and you're like, oh yeah, so when you're adopted, and everybody's like, no, we get it. Like even if you like don't, you're like, oh yeah, like just I say a thing and expect a follow-up question, and instead it's just vigorous head nods because everyone gets it. You're like, huh, Interesting. Okay, well, that's a new feeling. So
feels kind of good when that happens too. When you don't have to explain. Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing all that. Going back a little bit, you said that in 2014 is when you decided to go to Korea and do some research with your dad. Was there any time before that you were interested, or
no? That was 2019 was when I started getting interested. Before that, no, I really have not had any interest. And I visited a lot of other countries for sports when I was younger. But I really just did not have an interest in going to Korea. I felt like that country holds nothing for me. I was kind of, I want to say angry, but not trying to admit like I was angry. I was trying to like outwardly be like, no, I'm fine with it. I'm good. And people knew not to press me on that kind of thing, like, because I just, was like, I don't need to talk about this, like none of my friend group, I have any friends that are adopted. And it was just one of those things where we didn't really discuss it. I didn't want to bring it up. But now it's like one of the things that I'll say first. Yep, I'm Paul, I'm adopted. I'm from South Korea.
What about with your siblings? Did you ever talk to them about their Indian heritage or just their adoption?
This I was talking with my school today about. This came up, and I wish I did. But it was the same for them. They were adopted a little bit younger than I was, and they came from a much more. They were found like on the street in like just in famine, and they had like illnesses and things like that. They weren't. I was in an orphanage. I had reports. They were just kind of like found. And it was weird. My parents were originally going to adopt an older sister from India, but something happened where that arrangement didn't work. They only wanted to adopt one. However, when they found out about my brother and sister, they did not have the heart to split them up. And the orphanage was completely like, you can just take one. You can take the boy or the girl, whatever. They're like, if you're going to take one, go ahead. Because they already... they had a great track record because they already had me for 3 years and I was healthy and being very successful. But my parents were like, no, we can't do that. So they ended up adopting both of them. I wasn't very close with them growing up just because age, friend circle, busy. I was pretty busy. And since I didn't really identify as being Korean, they didn't identify as being Indian. And my parents, it's not like they were pushing us one way or the other. They were just trying to raise us the best that they knew how. So we didn't really dive too into it besides cuisine. My mom did learn how to cook some Indian, and she did learn how to cook some Asian cuisine, not Korean, but other Asian cuisines.
Yeah, right on. It sounded like your adopted siblings who are biological to each other, right?
Yes.
Were adopted when you were like 7. Does that math check out?
Yep.
So that could, depending, that could almost be like a whole generation different, just depending on how that all shakes out. So also it's weird. I don't know, Nathan, if you're like this, but I've never been to my adopted sister be like, so, adoption, what up with that? Like that's, I feel like it's a hard thing to jump into.
No, I definitely haven't.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. It's just a weird question. Paul, I'm curious, what was the jump for you? And maybe I'm sure you're still kind of jumping through this, but what was the main point when you shifted from like just feeling Italian, feeling like a part of like an Italian family or whatever, into accepting your Koreanness and moving into like, no, I think this actually is a thing that I want to explore, even if I am still pretty angry at Korea, the nation?
So I guess it wasn't, when I was younger, I was angry. As I started getting older, the anger just turned into like an indifference. Not that I was, like I rooted for South Korea in Olympics in soccer, World Cup. Like I'll root for them, for the different sports. I do archery, and South Korea is very passionate about archery. I've been in education for a while, and I have been teaching in inner city Philadelphia, and primarily Black students. And I've been learning a lot about Black culture. We try to incorporate that into the curriculum. One of the things we even did, like my 3rd year teaching there, we did a Chinese language exchange program. And the CEO worked out this grant. I helped get it, where we got like $100,000 to put TVs in all the classrooms, set up a classroom in China where our kids were going to learn from a Chinese teacher. They wanted me to run it, like to be the liaison, to interact with the Chinese, like keep the kids listening in Philly, like keep them managed while the Chinese teacher is teaching, and then match them up with pen pals and just be the liaison to grow the program. And I did. We grew it into a pretty nice, we did it for like 4 or 5 years. But like I was being labeled as like the Chinese teacher. And it's like, technically that wasn't wrong because I was helping teach this Chinese exchange.
But you're like, y'all, do you not see the optics of this? Like, come on now.
I wasn't teaching Chinese myself. I was just helping and reinforcing. But then, like, you know, I'm learning all about Chinese culture. I'm learning all about African American culture, and I'm you know, I'm really diving deep, and I'm creating these activities. And meanwhile, I'm over here like, what are you doing, man? Like, why aren't you starting to learn about your own culture? Like, I don't hate Korean culture. I just became indifferent to it at that time. So it was like, so I was like, you know what, let's shift, you know, let's have a shift here and let's start seeing, you know, what can I start learning about? What can I introduce about myself to my students first, then to the teachers, and then on a bigger scale, how can we start doing more for, in May, I was going to start small, just do some things for Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month and just start growing it. But I just realized like, I didn't know a lot. So I was like, I need to start learning. So I reached out to my dad, reached out to a couple contacts I knew as well, and just started getting more interested. And first it was through food. I love cooking. I love food. I'm Italian, so I had to learn how to cook, and just learning how to cook Korean cuisine and just learning things like I only knew in the past, like I want to say 5-6 years that all Korean households use scissors. You know, like that's like a essential item in the Korean kitchen. I was like, and it was like, it's so useful. Like they're useful for everything. Yeah. And the other thing I didn't know is that
with red handles too.
that Koreans use metal chopsticks over whatever other choices, you know. And I was out at an H Mart with one of my friends who's white, but he's been to both North and South Korea, like for recreation. And we were at H Mart and I chose wooden chopsticks and he chose metal, and we're eating. He goes, no self-respecting Korean would choose wooden chops over metal. And I was like, well, that's fine because I'm Italian. So, but then later on, I was like, all right, I need to buy myself some metal chopsticks.
You're like, that's fine. I'm Italian. Also, I'm going to get metal chopsticks while you're not cooking. It's fine.
At the very beginning of the podcast, when we started this, I actually sent KJ and Patrick both the metal chopsticks.
Oh, yeah.
Because I didn't know if they had them. And I think because I was close to an H Mart, little did I know they were actually fairly close to H Marts as well. But
well, I was not at the time, but
at the time. Oh yeah, that was in Dallas when you got to
I already had metal chopsticks and spades from my own excursion to Korea, which I don't know. I mean, personally, they're like, they feel like nice silverware. Like they have like a little flower on them and came in like a red velvet case. They're probably just like whatever silverware, chopsticks and spoons, but like they're very special to me. So, but I also appreciate the extra metal chopsticks.
On with the cooking, that's when I first found out about H Mart too. Like we don't have H Marts in my hometown. I come from like a red county and, you know, pretty conservative town, like small, rural, just farming town. We don't have H Marts. And once I came to school in Philly and I stayed here, started getting into Korean cooking, people were saying, well, have you been to H Mart? H Mart? I didn't know. And then I went. The first time I go, a Korean employee comes up and starts talking to me in Korean. I don't know any Korean except like Jeep, home, Amanaba, like a couple things. And so I was like, I don't speak Korean. She then yelled over to another associate, another woman across it's something like in Korean. And she started like laughing. Then the other one started laughing and they just started talking back and forth. And one of them was like pointing at me. I'm like, oh, this not. So I got my stuff got out and I said, anytime I go back there, I'm just going to nod my head, like make some grunts and like point, like I'm going over there. I was like, yeah. So like that was it. I need to start learning some Korean.
Oh no. You never found out what they said or what they were asking? Oh no. Man.
And he never went back to H Mart again.
Yeah, never again. No.
Yikes.
So when you started the cooking, what did you dive into first? What did you want to learn about Korean food first?
Okay, so I mean it's crazy. What actually got me into wanting to learn about Korean cuisine was I saw like some on the internet, like some posts about army stew. Like, you obviously you guys know what army stew is.
I do not know what that is.
It's like a hodgepodge of just like sausage, hot dogs, ramen, like what's the little mushrooms called? The skinny mushrooms?
The oyster mushrooms?
Yep, the oyster mushrooms and cheese and baked beans, and you just put it into this big like crock pot, and it sounds awful.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's actually really good.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. Then that got me into Korean
chili.
Kimchi jjigae. That's what I actually learned next. And I experimented with it. My parents are vegetarian, so when they came and I was cooking for them, I had to make it strictly with the tofu and just added some other vegetables. I had like some eggplant in there as well. But for myself, I've done pork, traditional, beef, chicken. I've done it, and then also learning how to make the scallion pancakes and the seafood. Not the seafood, the birthday soup, the seaweed.
Oh,
soup.
yeah.
The next thing I want to learn is how to start making the knife cut noodles.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Fresh ones.
I know what you're talking from reading it. I don't know. Again, I don't know that I've had it, but okay. I just also, side note, I looked up a picture of army stew. The picture looks good, but the hot dogs, I'm just like, what? What are you doing in there? So, I don't know. Look it up.
Neat. So then my follow-up question, Paul, on the foods. Did you eat any Korean food prior to when you started getting into this? I mean, you might have gone to a few restaurants here and there. And then if so, has anything ever felt familiar to you? Has anything ever brought back any feeling? Because you said you were adopted when you were 4. So I think, I know some people that say they remember some stuff when they were 4, but I was just curious if you did.
So the number one thing, when I came over, this is kind of a weird thing. At that time, they didn't have the money to have like people travel with the kids. So someone brought me to the airport, made sure I got on the plane, and then someone was waiting for me when I got, but no actual adult was like actually supervising me on the plane. So they ended up giving me a whole bunch of snacks, like just so like I would just like eat and fall asleep, eat and fall asleep. So I ended up having like this big bag of shrimp toast, chips. And that's something like I do remember this bag of shrimp chips I was chomping on the plane. And that's something that I do get now, but I have to be wary about, because if I grab one of those bags, I can be done with that bag.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like a thing of Pringles for me. Like I can eat a thing of Pringles without even blinking twice. And
the shrimp
that shrimp toast,
dangerous.
any chips that you get from like their honey type chips and like the sesame, even like the seafood chips that I've gotten them on. They're like I house them. But I mean,
the only ones that I don't like are the peanut butter squid balls. There's something about them that I can't do those. But every other seafood chip, I'm like, yeah, those are good.
All right, well, I'm gonna have to try the squid balls.
It's just weird. I don't like peanut butter that much. It sounds like army stew.
Yeah,
amazing. I don't like peanut butter that much. So I wonder if it's just a particular combination of like that like classic seafood flavor smell and then peanut butter smell, and I'm like, nah, this isn't for me.
I mean, those aren't two things that you would traditionally want to put together.
Yeah,
like food wise.
Yeah. So tell me, how did you get involved with the Korean American Association of Greater Philadelphia?
So that was through Instagram. They had this post for Korea in Philadelphia, and they were like, volunteers wanted. Click on this link. The day that they were doing it, I was free, and so I responded and I did their whole form. And I showed up the day before, and there's just 2 women just running around scrambling. And I was like, I signed the form. They said, show up at this time. What am I? They're just like, can you help us over here? Can you help us over here? Can you help us over here?
It was those 2 women from H Mart.
No. And I was just like, yeah, is there a list of things? Instead, you just tell me like, to help rent. And they're like, if you know anything about Koreans, we don't plan ahead. We do everything kind of last minute. I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm not Korean then.
Yeah. We Italians are very prepared.
So then that was Friday. And then I think Saturday was the actual event. And I went and I helped out. I did like every job you could think of at that thing. I was setting up things. I was selling shirts. I was like babysitting like high school volunteers. I was doing all these different things. But then it connected me with a couple other people that were a part of churches, part of the the CAP, KA, Korean American of Greater Philadelphia. And that's what got me like hooked in. I met the mayor of a town. I met some realtors. I met some church ministers. So that's what really got me connected. And a few of those, the people that I met there, we've now consistently kept in touch, and we've been expanding just each other to different experiences and networking with different people as well.
That's cool.
Great. I just thought of, after you said CAP, I was thinking, CAD could technically be the Korean Adoptees of Denver, so maybe I should start that.
CAD.
CAD with two Ds. KDD. KDD.
Okay, cool.
Maybe. I'm going to do that. I'm starting that. Hashtag corned queen. It's mine.
Dibs. Amazing. Yeah, that's so cool. So where are you at now with your Korean identity and your like adoptee? It sounds like you've really kind of leaned into the Koreanness of it, and in doing so been like, yeah, I'm adopted from Korea. Like the adoption tag kind of like helps you kind of lean into your Koreanness. Is that right? I mean, how is that balancing out now?
So I recently put back into go through the whole adoption trip to Korea, and I'm gonna see like how that's gonna pan out. If next year when they do it, if I will get selected, if I can go through the process, and I'm just gonna keep doing it at a pace that's not just like overwhelming. But right now I've made a couple like very solid friends. Some that aren't adopted but are Korean and practice a pretty traditional Korean culture. Some that are adopted and practice Korean culture, and then some that are adopted that don't do anything related to Korean culture but are trying to learn just like me. So it's like a nice little network of people that I've started to form. Like I'm going to a church. I've never gone to church my entire life, and now I go to a Korean church. And I'm going to services, and I've been hit like going to a couple community events.
Do they have lunch in the basement after the service?
I normally roll out kind of quick, but I don't think they do. Community nights, they do food on community nights. If you pay like $10 or $15, they will bring like banh mi's or banch, like whatever. But I'm just going to go at a pace where I keep growing in it, keep learning in it. Eventually I'm going to plan a trip back to Korea. It's going to happen within the next year or two. That's going to be definite. Now that I've met so many people that have been there and were adopted and don't speak Korean, like that was my biggest barrier, is like, how am I going to go to this country and I can't talk? Like, what if I go there and I literally find my mom and I can't talk to her because she doesn't know English, I don't speak Korean, and everything has to go through translator, which is fine. I know a lot of people have to do that, but for me personally, like I would like to be able to communicate a little bit, and just know my way around. That's gonna happen in the next year or two. I'm definitely planning a trip there, whether it's through Holt or not. I'll go. My dad and I will go. And we'll make that happen. I'm just gonna keep trying to. I'm still in education, so I'm going to keep raising more awareness through the platform of education. I'm a level 3 certified NTS archery instructor, and I'm getting into junior Olympic athletic development and archery. So, I mean, I don't know if you guys follow archery, but the number one guy in archery is Kisik Lee, and he was born in Seoul, and he's the trainer for the U.S. national team. So, Korea has a strong tie to archery. So I'm just going to keep trying to really embrace the culture, learn more about it, but not have it, not feel like, not be overwhelmed by it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you're going at your own pace. I think that's so smart. Yeah. And sometimes probably between me and Nathan and Patrick, who isn't whatever isn't available to be with us tonight. I think we've probably all been like, oh, Koreanness, and like tried to just drink from the fire hose that is the culture. But it sounds like you're like, nah, I'm okay just getting a glass of water. Like, that's fine. I don't need the fire hose experience.
Yeah, I met some really good people at this last event, and I had not known any Korean people leading up to that. You know, so it's like all my friends are either white, black, Indian, a mixture of other like combinations. You know, like they don't put it one label, multiracial. So like at this event, I was immersed. It was Koreans everywhere. Like Korean kids just running around, like left and right around me, like playing games and like kicking around a soccer ball, throwing a frisbee. I was like, oh yeah, Korean people exist, like here. Like
we're here. We did
it's
it.
Cool. Like I'm like average height. I'm like above average height at this event. Like this is pretty wild. But the problem is a lot of them were trying to talk to me in Korean at this event. And when I didn't speak it, they all kind of like, they all had a little like diminished look to them. Like, how come you don't speak Korean? Like what? You know, what's going on here?
Yeah, that has to be one of the biggest barriers, I think, for a lot of us. I personally, when I went to Korea and met my biological family, I that's one thing I felt was that I wish I had known more Korean at the time. I knew I would never be able to conversational Korean, but I knew that at least I had said a few words here and there would have been good. I had to translate the entire time through an app, and the app translated back and forth, and that was it. But when I had a translator, an actual person translating with us, I really felt that was very beneficial. It was just great to have more of a conversation that was, I want to say, more accurate than the app, because as you know, the Google Translate or Papago or any of those apps are just not as accurate. So having an actual person was amazing. It was I learned so much more in a shorter period of time. And, you know, I felt good. So, yeah, if that's the last resort, you know, definitely take it. Because I think, I was happy to get as much information as I did that way.
Real quick on that, just because I'm really trying to catch up, you know, on the podcast. But my problem is with my work schedule, I really only listen to podcasts when I drive. And
you don't just like commute remote into school?
My commute is like 15 minutes. So it's like I catch like a beginning one, and then on the way home, I try to wrap it up. Now, there's been some nights that, you know, I've listened. Nathan, do you know what number podcast you talk about your trip and back and meeting your birth parents?
Well, the
Probably
first episode
1, right?
Yeah, might have been episode 1. So if you go all the way back,
wow.
Episode 1 is where both KJ and Patrick interview me, and I go into my story a little bit. There's a lot more though on my Instagram. So
okay, all right.
Yeah, if you're interested in hearing more, or just, you know, reach out to me, and I definitely can talk a little bit more about what I did there.
Nathan's like, or we could just be friends in real life. That's fine. You don't have to listen to the podcast.
Contact. You don't have to listen to my podcast. I can give you a lot more information than an hour on the podcast.
You know, the social media game is something that, like, for me, it was slow to get into. And like, I went to one of these at the first dinner that we were at. One of the women that was there, one of the cats that was there, that's the first thing she did. What's your Instagram? To everybody. Mm-hmm. What's your cell phone number? I'd never even met this girl. Now she's asking me for my like cell phone number and my Instagram and all this stuff. I'm just like, why am I giving you my personal? I don't even know you. Suddenly, like, she's created a group chat. Suddenly she's like, she's requested to follow you. And like, I'm supposed to do that, but I'm trying to catch up. So I have it on my plan to follow all of you guys on Instagram and do that. I followed you on this I listen on Amazon Music, and I gave you guys like, whatever good ratings I could on like iTunes app and stuff. Aww. I'm catching up. I was slow. None of this happened until like yesterday.
He's like, I could only drink so much water, okay? And this podcast was very new to the water table.
I'll buy some merch soon. I'll catch up. But I'm interested in hearing about that story, man. That one of the people that I met, she went back and met her birth father. She's staying in Korea. I think you're going to interview her soon. She's the mayor of Royersford.
Yeah.
Yep. Her and I become close friends. And
that's awesome.
And the crazy thing is, she was born in Mokpo, just like I was. She's a Kim, just like I was. So I need to do that 23andMe to figure out if we're related.
Guys, can we go in on this?
Are we siblings?
That'd be wild.
Well,
it's just like cousins. I don't know. That'd be fine.
That would be
wild. Oh man, that's so cool. All right, so you were planning a trip in 2019-ish and planning on going in 2020. You're looking at planning it again differently. I mean, there's 2 years, almost 2 years, 2 years, 3 years in there. I don't know, math. When you think about the trip that you were planning to Korea in 2019, 2020, and like the way that you think about it now, has anything changed for you about like, oh yeah, actually I want to do XYZ thing and that wasn't even on my radar, or vice versa?
No, there's a lot of stuff from Jenna when she went, and we met up and I picked her brain about it. So there's a list. She wrote like this 45-page blog, and I followed along every day reading, like catching up. So, and I told her, can you send me that? And I've highlighted things. But I'm still gonna spend a week in Mokpo. Like that's kind of, and I'm also gonna spend time with my dad's friends. But what I told my dad is like, he loves to read too. I'm gonna send you this blog. Tell me, like, between your friends, like, what are some things like they would have already done? And then I'm gonna try to sprinkle in some of it. And if I have to take a third week to be there, I will. Like, I know, like, you can spend like a week just at I think it's supposed to be pronounced Jeju. Even though we all say Jeju. Yeah. So I know people can spend a week there alone. So there are extra things after learning what she did. And this is if I can't get into this program that is already planning to do, a lot of these things with you. From what I've heard of the whole program for their adoptees, is they really do like a very all-inclusive, great kind of picture.
Is that like a return to the Motherland tour?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I did that when I went. I mean, I was like in middle school at the time. So take it through that lens of me being very young. But it was a whirlwind of stuff. And very, like, I mean, we went all over the peninsula and like got to see and do a lot of things. And I think that it is a cool way to experience Korea. But I think like with the connection that your dad has and the network that he has, like that would be so valuable. Just to like be with Koreans on the ground to kind of get that experience too. So time allowing, I would do both, but you can't go wrong either way.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that's what it leads to. Like this initial trip, I don't plan on like crossing this off my bucket list and being like, all right, I don't need to do that again. I'm hoping like, this is one of multiple trips, that just leads to whatever it is, my background, education, and my experience is like, I want to get more involved with adoptees, and like I've worked with children for the past 20 years. And when I like say children, I'm talking like all the way up to 18, through my summer camp, through school, through coaching, soccer coaching, archery, doing all that. So I would like to just get more involved, and my heart's going to be, towards Korean adoptees, who've, need kind of like a mentor and support with different things. So any way that I can get involved, I will be looking to do that as long as it's within my bandwidth. I'm not like burning myself out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Gosh, man, I just think your story is so cool. And you've been so like the thing I think that I'm most impressed upon by where you are right now is just like the intentionality and the restraint and the just like the boundaries, like really healthy restraint and really healthy boundaries, because it can be a lot. We talk a lot on the show about like the coming out of the fog moment. I mean, it would be like if you'd spent your whole life in the dark and suddenly saw the sun. It's like it can be really blinding and really overwhelming. And I have just been so encouraged to see just this like very intentional, like, no, I am who I am, and I'm going to add this back into my life as I can. Like just that measure and that capacity, I think is really wonderful. And that's in particular, it's not like a thing that I hear a lot. In the stories that I hear, it's always like, I don't know, it's this whole new world and I'm so excited. I'm like, yeah, this is a great world and I'm going to take my time. I never get like that combination. So I think that's really cool. And I'm curious to like, do you think, has this shaped, do you think it will continue to shape the way that you enter into those education spaces, especially when you're working with students of color? Like, I know for me, it's like, it's taken me being around other people of color and hearing other authors or speakers or entertainment, whatever, from people of color who celebrate their identities. I'm like, that it allows me to celebrate who I am. But in turn, like for you being an educator for, I don't know, K through 12 or however, whatever the age range is, like, how do you anticipate this new kind of area that you're on shaping the way that you step into education?
So that's a great question, man. And I love that you brought that one up because this is something I'm passionate about. One of the big things in education that is really starting to take off is this whole idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is something like that goes against a lot of district policies, especially within like private Catholic schools and things like that. So this ties in what I've been trying to, realizing about myself and raising awareness to my own culture for myself, ties into that element that is starting to flourish in education is, what are the things that are holding different races, nationalities from all getting that same level of quality education and equitable access to resources and all that. And, the stereotypes, implicit biases that people have, the conversations right now in those states that are saying, abolishing critical race theory and banning books that are trying to teach the true history of our country. And, we have two completely polar sides, battling it out right now. And no one's trying to find like the gray area there, and it's something that, I embrace that I have implicit bias. We all do. It's a product of how we were raised. My problem is when I realized that my implicit biases were against Asian people, not solely them, because I was raised in a white environment. So I was raised, your implicit biases stem from what you're comfortable, how you grew up. How you grew up and what you've been around your entire life molds that. And this diving into implicit really kind of brings out like what we need to all work on individually. And I plan to fully keep pursuing learning more about Korean culture along with other cultures as well, and advocating for everyone to just get outside their bubbles, learn about, other foods. And there's so many kids, Korean, like, has gone mainstream in American culture. They don't know it's Korean. It's like, they know it's Korean if it's like directly K-pop. But my kids, when I taught in Philly, they love a ton of Asian things, but they don't know how to label them. Like, they think everything is Chinese. And it's and I still have, parents that are like, oh, is that Chinese teacher still there? I was like, I taught your kid from kindergarten to 6th grade and you didn't remember, like, I'm Korean. Like, what's going on there? And I have a big yin yang, like, in my classroom with my name, like, adopted from South Korea, like this whole, and I've done like activities with my kids where they do like crossword puzzles about Mr. D when they're getting to know me. And I'm sprinkling in like Korean culture things, like one of his favorite foods is kimchi, like, and all these. So I'm going to keep doing that. And teachers need it as well. They need to know, like, that they need to learn about other cultures and be able to have those conversations. And if they don't know, it's okay as long as they're willing to grow from it. Like, you could say something wrong. You could assume something wrong as long as you're willing to reflect and be like, oh, all right, now I know for next time. But don't not speak up just because you're like, I don't know about it. Like, it's got that conversations have to start. People don't want to have a conversation because they don't know. That's like me with transgender and like LGBTQ. I didn't know a lot of that a few years back, but I wasn't afraid to have those conversations, and now I do. So now, like, I've taken active steps to be more inclusive to transgender, LGBTQ, and what kind of language that you're supposed to use, using pronouns and stuff like that. I wasn't hesitant. It's the same thing for people in understanding Asian culture, the differences between just understanding, like, Asian represents 60% of the world, not just like East Asian, which is what most people associate, the term Asians to. We're a what's the word? It's iceberg. We're an iceberg. At the tip of the iceberg, it's Chinese, Japanese, and like Indian, Korean. And then underneath, we have like all the other countries that are represented by Asia. And that model myth, minority, that all comes into play. And the inaccurate, stereotypes and labeling people for their successes and failures based off of their race, that's ludicrous. And so I plan to keep raising awareness for that and advocating for all the different social medias that are doing that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
Man, that's really fantastic.
Yeah, really appreciate all of what you just said there. I mean, the fact that you are in education and can and do that and are willing to do that, I think is great. So, and the way you're doing it is a great, model as well. The way that you're jumping into it, at your pace is perfect. I think everyone will understand that as well, that they don't have to if they don't want to, and if they do, then they can do it at their own pace. So. Really appreciate everything that you said there. Well, I'm thinking we should jump into a food now.
Yeah, this feels like a good time for a break.
I think the snacks are calling our names. So we will be right back in just a second with a snack. Welcome back to the Janchi Show food portion.
Foodie.
I was just waiting for that. I wanted to see if you were going to say that. Food. Okay. Today, we just had a great interview with Paul DiGilio. We have a snack that he was so gracious to go find as well at his local store. And this looks pretty good. This is a good choice. I'm glad you found this one because I have been eyeing this one. I have no clue how to pronounce it. It says Binch on the front of it. And B-I-N-C-H.
Yeah, for the listeners, that's
let me spell that out before. That's okay. We have an E rating on this.
It's fine. Oh, that's true.
Good.
It is by Lotte. The Korean just says Binch. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm gonna Google Translate it real quick, but
okay, I see where they got it.
I can't imagine it means anything.
Yeah.
So look down to the bottom. It says biscuit in chocolate is how they take the B-I-N-C-H.
Wait, what?
B-I-N-C-H.
N-C-H. Yep.
Biscuit in chocolate.
Biscuit in chocolate. Oh, okay. Like that very old-timey American and biscuit and chocolate.
Biscuit and chocolate.
Binch.
I'm just going to go with
That's
Binch.
so weird.
Binch.
Yeah, you really got to hit
like
that E sound and not the short I sound. It sounds better.
Yeah. But it looks like
it has a clearly marked open label, which is exciting.
I mean, it looks like it's got big branding Lotte all over the front of it.
Yeah, you always know when it's a Lotte product.
It looks very nice. As I say, it's a nice presentation of a
that's
chocolate.
that ship on there.
Yeah. Oh, there's a nice. Yeah.
That's pretty solid.
I mean, this could be a high quality Girl Scout cookie, right?
It's really good. It smells like milk chocolate, like American level milk chocolate. Which I think is impressive. The cookie is good,
and that chocolate's pretty thick too. It's not a thin layer.
I like that over coverage on that one side.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's true.
Oh, this is really good.
Yeah.
When I bit into it, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like it, but now that I finished it, I'm glad you sent me multiple.
I'm glad I got the large box.
Yeah. I mean, you also have a family that you could give it to.
Yeah, my kids like raid
For
my
me, it's just me and my cat
snack
and
drawer
Sarah.
here.
Oh, putting a plug about what we're talking about. I have gotten Korean treats and given them out as incentives in my classroom and turn kids on to going home and them going home and be like, can we get these jellies to their parents? Then their parents are emailing me like, Mr. D, can you tell me where you get the jellies from? Like my kid asked.
Awesome.
And the other ones are like, I don't know how Korean they are, but the high chews, I've gotten some kids that just are like obsessed with them now. They're kind of like Korean Starbursts. Are they Japanese?
No, I thought there's a.
I thought Haichu. I don't know, but yeah, like kind of the milk candy thing.
Yeah,
no,
you have them. Yep.
You already got them. All right. I don't know what I'm thinking of, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
This one's made in China. It does say product of Japan.
Oh, it does say.
It does say a product of Japan.
Oh man!
Actually, I always Haichus, I believe, are Japanese, but isn't there like a Michu,
Yeah,
Maybe
it's
that one's
probably
the
a
Korean one.
Maichu. That's the
The
Korean
Maichu,
version.
Maichu,
That's
yeah.
like the pepero and
Right.
wait, shoot.
All right.
What's the more popular Japanese one?
Poke.
Not more popular. The more
Pocky.
popular to
Pocky
American
pepero.
audiences. Pake. Yeah.
Yeah. Japanese
Pepero
version,
and
but-
pake. So,
That's great.
anyways, back to the Binch
Yeah,
biscuit.
Paul, I do the same thing, by the way. So when my kids eat Japanese or Korean or any Asian snack, really, and they take it to school, other kids also, they're like, wait, what is that? What are you eating? And then they're very curious about it. And sometimes, like one day it was like a lunch thing and my wife went and she brought extra. So she shared it with all the other kids that were there and they all loved it. And they were like, they wanted more of it. And so I love that just that introduction to these snacks. So yeah, that's a great idea for you to be giving those to your students. So
So I'll be using that with these Binch crackers.
Binch.
I'm gonna have to be careful with these. Like kids are gonna
Just
take
think
them
of
home.
it
Parents
as-
gonna be like, "What?"
BEE.
although be
Binch.
careful because it does say contains wheat, milk, soybean, peanut, and tree nut.
Oh yeah, you know what? That nut stuff is gonna.
Yeah, the nut one
School's
might
not
be
gonna
careful
fly.
about
particularly.
Good
My
call.
kid's also allergic to peanut, so it doesn't really say how much peanut is in
So
there.
more
Actually,
for Nathan is what I'm
I know.
hearing.
Sorry, son. I gotta eat them all.
Sorry, kid. Amazing. What's the most popular treat in your classroom that you brought, Paul?
Those jellies. I mean, I don't know if that's like those little kind of like cups with jelly in them.
Cup with
I've had-
jelly in them.
Mhm. Yeah, the little cup. Yeah, we have those all the
You
time.
just
too.
like slurp them out.
Yeah.
You can get them in, all,
What?
and some have like little,
Fruit.
pieces of fruit in them as well.
I'll send you some, KJ.
I
Don't
was
worry.
gonna say, I was like, I gotta go to a market and find some of that.
And some ginger candies. I've gotten some ginger candies as well that the kids have gotten obsessed
Oh
with.
wait, no, I'm thinking of those. Did you send us ginseng
I
candies?
gave you ginseng candies. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wouldn't
Not ginger
recommend
candies.
giving those to your kids, unless it's the kids you don't like, and then maybe you could give one.
You know what?
Yeah, but-
Sometimes though, I kind of crave them. I don't know. It's probably because
Well,
I'm a
they're so-
90-year-old at heart. It's fine.
Yeah, they're supposed to be healthy for you. I don't know. So now I'm curious. I wonder if they make other brand or other like types of chocolate or
like a white
just
chocolate
these
binch.
biscuits and chocolate. I don't know. Maybe there's another flavor too, but I'll keep looking, keep my eye out.
I don't know.
Well-
It's really good.
Yeah, Paul, we'll let you start. We rate our stuff between 1 and 5. So how many
How many
many
binches do you give
beaches
this
would you give it?
cookie?
No, I'm gonna give this one a solid 4.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean,
All
I'm trying not to eat another one right now. Like I want to like save them. But I could easily see myself eating like 6 of these in the morning or
yeah.
after.
Who needs
dinner
breakfast when
or-
you have
I was gonna say
binch
Patrick would
cookies?
already be on his 8th one, I think, right now.
I mean,
Yeah.
I just finished 4,
Oh,
so
well, good. You're making up for making.
And,
up
and that design on I really like that design as well. It'd be cool if they had different designs.
Mhm.
like-
oh, actually,
Have
have you made
if
like
they stamp them-
collectible biscuits? Where they have
it's
different,
collectible. Actually, they do. So yours,
Oh.
the first one was a ship. Here, this one's yours. It's a musical bars
Oh, wow.
and staff.
Oh, and this one's
Oh
a
man,
bike.
It's a bike.
a
It
carriage.
is.
I'm
They're
gonna
all
be real.
different.
Oh, wow.
I have
All
not
right,
even
no.
spent time looking at that.
KJ ate them too
Open
quickly.
package placed directly in mouth.
You ate 5. I didn't even look at it.
Like you said the first time, like, oh yeah, this one has a ship on it. I was like, oh really? I was already eating the first one. 4 later, you're like, oh yeah, it might have different designs. I don't have any more to look at, so I'm gonna jump. I'm gonna give this a perfect 5 out of 5
Wow.
ships. These are, for my palate, they are just like perfectly balanced. The chocolate's super smooth and creamy. The biscuit is nice and like toasty and like, yeah, this is real good. Real good. 5 out of 5. That's what I'm giving it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying. I don't think I have any.
I'm actually gonna go look for more BRB.
I don't think I have any complaints. I think these were just like he said, very tasty. Good ratio of chocolate to biscuit, crunchy, small. I don't know if they needed to have them individually wrapped like this, like we were saying. Like I think they could have put in like 3 or 4 of these into into one little package, or because obviously.
Oh yeah,
KJ's
what's the
eating-
serving size?
KJ's eating 5 of them, but there should be, I would say,
4.
Yeah. So yeah, they should put
I'm
4.
doing fine.
Why don't we
Wait,
put
how many
4
calories is 4
in a bag? So I'm going to dock it a little bit for that. So I'm going to give it a 4.75.
I didn't know we could do point numbers.
You can do whatever you want. We've even had
has a lady on
random
it.
fractions before. Apparently, KJ a couple weeks ago rated his as a alphabet from F to A, so he gave it a C rating. But whatever he was eating, so
I'm gonna up it to like a 4 or 5 after learning that the different artwork, there is different stamped artwork.
Ooh.
I like that.
The only thing, half of a point. Wow,
for creativity and variety. Yeah,
all right.
I prefer dark chocolate over milk. So if they make one in dark chocolate, I think that would be me.
You know, I'm with you. I generally am dark chocolate over not dark chocolate, but I think actually that wouldn't fly quite as well. Like, I don't know. There's something about the particular combination, I think, of this milk chocolate and the biscuit that is just like, it just makes it real. I don't know, like the mouthfeel at the end. I could have this all day. Specifically the mouthfeel, not the cookies. I could not have the cookies all day.
New guilty pleasure is the Binch.
Oh, I don't feel guilty about it. It is strictly pleasure.
It's satisfying popping one, like the first one I bit, and like, you know,
No, the whole thing.
I didn't want to.
That's a one biter.
But the second one, like, just pop. It's the crunch that you get from it is a very satisfying crunch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Oof, man, that's good. All right, so Paul, where can people find you if they want to connect with you? I know you were like, I'm working on the social media game, but if you're open to connecting with some other listeners of the show, CADs or CAD allies, where can people find you?
Sure. So I do have a Instagram and TikTok. Except my Instagram is a school, like it has kids, so it's like I have to keep that private. So I don't know if I should share that one, but I do have a TikTok that doesn't have any of that. And in it, I actually do some kind of like funny kind of like parodies of things, like combining like my Italian and Korean culture. I put a video of me eating spaghetti with metal chopsticks, you know.
I thought you were about to say spaghetti with kimchi. Like, what goes better with marinara sauce than kimchi?
So, and that one
Nathan,
is,
get that look off your face.
There's a whole nother story. I'll tell you that one later.
All right.
Actually.
It's koam.educator for TikTok.
KOAM.educator.
Yep.
On TikTok.
Great.
The thing that I saw was you singing.
TikTok promoter.
Yeah, I think that's the first TikTok plug on the show. So you've gone down in the history books of the Janchi Show. I was just watching a TikTok where you were singing. You had rewritten the chorus of American Pie. Be education related.
So when I resigned. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yep, and now it called me back. What kind of my first video on TikTok that went viral is when we went COVID and I had to teach music from my basement, which sucked, by the way.
I'm sure.
Like you can't do anything fun like music wise when you're doing it virtually.
Kids, here's theory.
But I was trying to figure out ways that they could do music at home. So like making instruments, you know, finding ways that they can make instruments using like a tissue box, rubber band, taking empty bottles and putting rice and beans in there and shaking. And one of the things I did, I took these glass bottles and I filled them up with different levels of water so they would be at different pitches. And I coordinated with our other teachers saying like this could also be a science lesson. You could talk to them about like the physical properties, you know, of why the water is a higher pitch. And I played, I did The Little Mermaid and I also did like Super Mario Brothers. And those kind of like, they did kind of blow up. And I was at like a steady like 50, 60 followers. I was like, yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Then these, and I jumped up to like 1,000 in a day. I was like, holy smokes, I'm an influencer.
I've made it.
I have 1,000 followers.
That's awesome.
Amazing. Well, we here at the Janchi Show are excited about tens of followers, so maybe we'll get on your level one day.
Yeah, we really appreciated all that you shared in the interview, and for coming on so last minute as well. Thank you again for being available and for sharing your story. As always, you can find us, Janchi Show, at justlikemedia.com. KJ, you've got the number memorized. Has anyone called in yet?
Oh, yes. I'm going to play it on our next solo episode, but someone did call in and just said roof. Specifically roof, not rough, roof. So
and that's how I say it.
Roof. See?
You say roof. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. You can just say rough.
Say rough.
You say, it's some version of that. It's not quite rough, but it's more rough than roof. So, yeah. Anyways, if you want to call in and leave us a message, just the hottest 1 second message of how you pronounce the word ROOF. That number is 972-677-8867. I think that's the dumbest call for voicemails I've ever put out, but leaving it out there. Otherwise, you can find us at Janchi Show on all the social media platforms. Nathan said our email. You can go to janchishow.com to find out more, or janchishow.com/support to figure out how you can support the show. I'm at KJ Relke on all the places that I want to be found on the internet.
I'm NoWalk on Instagram.
And Patrick is at Patrick in the World. Send him some love. Life has been hard to him lately. I think that is it for us. Paul, thank you again for coming on. And until next week, hopefully, Janchi Heyo!